I'll be coming back to Manila. Simply no.
Well, good morning, kababayans. Thank you all for coming. Century is very excited to be here in London this morning. We'd like to say thank you for welcoming us to your country and for being here despite your busy schedules. It is our distinct pleasure to discuss with you today the global financial and real estate environment and introduce you to our company and our projects. Our agenda for today will tackle the key issues. First, we will introduce you to Century, our company, through a group overview. And then we will touch upon the global environment and the current situation in the Philippines. We will then proceed to give you a construction update on all of our ongoing projects. We will discuss how you can afford and easily afford to buy Century properties. And also I will close with giving you some closing advice.
Manila, I keep coming back to Manila.
Century Properties was founded in 1986 by our father. This was 1 week before the EDSA revolution. Since then, in our 22-year history, we have seen 4 real estate cycles and have grown into a full-service real estate company involved in development, sales and marketing, and property management. For the property development side of the business, we have built over 50 buildings, delivered over 7,000 units with a 100% completion rate. For our sales and marketing, we have a sales network of over 500 people, both locally and internationally. Currently, we are present in 6 continents, and in London, we actually have an office. We actually have 2 offices here. For property management, we have 42 buildings under management, not just Century projects, but also of third-party developers, totaling $2 billion under management. At this point, I'd like to show you our video, Century Properties 20 Reasons, to give you a short overview of the company.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes the most fleeting of introductions can lead to the birth of some of the most fruitful and enduring of relationships. And while we did consider a drawn-out presentation of who we are, complete with pie charts, mind-numbing graphs, and numbers upon numbers upon numbers to substantiate our reputation, boring is a concept that simply cannot be interwoven into our culture of success. We prefer words like visionary, excellence, perfection, and even fun. Allow us to introduce ourselves. We are Century Properties. You may not know much about us yet, but in the next 20 slides, we're confident that you may want to get to know us a little better. 1. Century Properties is the country's largest privately owned full-service property group. 2. With over $1.25 billion in assets under management. Not too shabby. 3. Among our formidable team are the most accomplished, most creative, and most highly regarded individuals in the industry. With a combined experience of over 400 years in real estate, we hold ourselves responsible for the creation of some of the most unique, outstanding, and visionary projects in the history of Philippine real estate. 4. In 2005, the Century Group was voted Most Outstanding Real Estate Firm by Global Excellence Awards and by the National Product Quality Excellence Awards. In 2006, the Philippine Business World Quality Awards voted us Most Outstanding Housing Developer. We also won Best Managed Philippine Brand, Housing Developer, by the Philippine Star brand. 5. In 2006, we received the Global Excellence Award for Most Outstanding Real Estate Firm and the Consumer's Choice Award for both 2007 and 2008. 6. We have built, marketed and managed over 60 major projects in the past 20 years. 7. We've contributed over 45 buildings to the Philippine skyline. 8. Among our portfolios are the nation's most prestigious high-rises, residential projects, developments for the arts, banking and telecommunications institutions, and probably the best hospital in the country, the Asian Hospital in Alabang. 9. Century Properties residential developments have become the country's most prestigious addresses. West of Ayala, Pacific Place, Oxford Suites, The Domain, The Triomphe, Bel Air Soho, and 10. Essenza East Forbes, our flagship condominium development, was voted by Asia Week magazine as the best residential building in Asia. 11. In March 2008, we were able to turn over to the residents south of Market at the Fort, the country's first fully fitted and fully furnished residential high-rise. Likewise, Soho Central, our luxury boutique residence in Ortigas, and the country's first transport-oriented residential high-rise with a direct connection to the MRT railway station, is set to be delivered to our new residents several months ahead of schedule. 12. After the success of Essenza, Soma and Soho Central, Century has many other developments simultaneously rising in the country right now. 13. Canyon Ranch, our master-planned gated community at San Lazaro Leisure Park in Carmona, was voted Best Residential Community. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are now sold out, along with the Casitas, our fully fitted, fully furnished, fully serviced townhouse development. Canyon Ranch has truly become the most desired residential address in the South. 14. Grand Soho Makati, our fully fitted and fully furnished high-rise boutique residence, now rising in the heart of Makati's Golden Triangle, has sold out in less than 6 months. 15. And of course we have our latest, most progressive project. Rising on the last remaining large piece of prime property in Makati is the city's newest landmark and soon to be one of Asia's most exciting destinations. Century City. This sprawling mixed-use development will be composed of a shopping, dining and lifestyle experience, corporate office buildings and luxury residential high-rises, including the Gramercy Residences, a towering skyscraper inspired by the great city of New York. And the Knightsbridge Residences, with its easy, curvilinear architecture and hip modern interiors inspired by London's most prestigious neighbourhood. 16. We have won over 30 awards from the Philippine Department of Interior and Local Government, the Department of Labour and Employment, and various award-giving bodies for keeping the buildings we manage and build safe and secure. 17. Century Properties Management Company provides management and consultancy services to over 45 buildings, like Pacific Star, Alexandra Condo, United Coconut Planters Bank in Makati, Bank of the Philippine Islands Headquarters, Globe Telecom Headquarters, Astoria Hotel, the PNB Headquarters in Macapagal Avenue, and most recently, the Asian Development Bank in Ortigas. 18. In 2008, Century Properties makes history as it becomes the first Philippine real estate company to develop a project in the United States. Rising in the heart of Midtown Manhattan, just a few steps away from Fifth Avenue and Central Park in New York City, is Century's first North American project, a hyper-luxury condominium called the Centurion. As with all signature Century projects, it brings together a collaboration of world-class talents, including legendary master architect I.M. Pei, who is also the architect behind worldwide design masterpieces like the Grand Louvre in Paris, the Bank of China in Hong Kong, and the Four Seasons Hotel in New York. 19. We have sold over 5,000 units in the past 3 years. 20. And as we step into our 22nd year, Century Properties' heritage of quality, design and expertise goes beyond our national boundaries. In less than 2 decades, we have quietly grown to become the nation's biggest private real estate developer. And this makes us work even harder to take care of the smallest of details. Sometimes, the most fleeting of introductions can lead to the birth of some of the most fruitful and endearing of relationships. We hope that this can be the start of ours. Century Properties. We see things a century ahead.
We hope you enjoyed that video and learned more about our corporate history, our significant milestones, and our achievements. Century consistently ranks in the top 5 of residential sales currently in the Philippines. We have an annual turnover of around 8 billion pesos, which is a little over $150 million. At this point, we'd like to share with you an interview conducted with our chairman, Jose Ibi Antonio, by CNBC. This interview was conducted in July, and while it is a few months old, many of the topics discussed are still very relevant to today's market.
Wolf 721, left intercept the final bearing 222.
Century's Properties says despite the Philippines' economic headwinds, the local real estate market is resilient and could even provide a hedge against inflation. We're going to talk to the company's chairman and CEO, Jose Antonio, in just a couple of minutes, and a first on CNBC. Well, like many Asian countries at the moment, the Philippines is facing a tough battle against rising inflation. But according to our next guest, one sector that could provide investors a hedge against price pressures is real estate. Joining us now live from Hong Kong and in a first on CNBC interview is Jose Antonio, chairman and CEO of Century Properties, one of the largest privately owned real estate companies in the Philippines, also special envoy to China and chairman of the Philippine-China Business Council. And also staying with us is our guest host, Gerard Lyons from Standard Chartered Bank. Joey, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. In your own words, what are the arguments for investing in Philippine real estate?
The Philippine real estate has not been the best performing market, but it has been exhibited strong and consistent growth over the past years, simply because our real estate property market is really based on very low geared buying. Most of our people buy on equity, and therefore most of the purchases are really for use rather than for speculation. Hence, the growth rate has exhibited a consistent 10% to 15% per annum. And right now, as inflation has been recorded on a 12% rate last month, and while the bank rates have been very low, people perceive that it's better to buy real estate than put their money in the bank.
Okay, and that's because of potential capital appreciation? Because, I mean, if people buy to move in to have a roof over their heads, I assume they're not looking for yield.
They're not only looking for yields, but they're also looking for a place to live. You see, the profile of the Philippine market is such that there has been a very big gap in terms of demand compared to the annual output of all the developers in the country. We have actually a very big supply need. It's only now that there is an increasing number of people joining the middle class in the Philippines, and this is because of the phenomenon of our 11 million Filipinos who are working abroad. They send back money to the country, and this year it's projected that about $16 billion will be sent back to the Philippines. And most experts believe that 1/3 of this go to housing. And because of this, there's been a tremendous demand for housing, because Filipinos, like most Asians, do really love properties as the primary investment.
Actually, can I follow up on that? Because it sounds like from what you're saying, there's great catch-up potential for the housing market in the Philippines. But two key variables that have come out from your answers so far. One, domestic interest rates. The central bank is hiking, but you seem to imply that will not have a big impact on housing. And the other, of course, is the currency issue. The currency is now under more trouble, shall we say, in recent weeks, but that has a clear impact in terms of remittance flow. So how will the interest rate and the currency environment play out? Because at the moment, neither seems particularly attractive for the Filipino housing market.
Well, let's tackle the interest rate issue first. The interest rate is still at single digit, where during the Asian crisis we saw it in double digit. It's the central bank just increased last month by 0.25 or 250 basis points. This doesn't really interest a lot of people in putting their money in the banks. Okay. We're still at 4.5%. On the second issue of inflation, most people believe that continued inflation will increase prices, not only of real estate but of consumer products, and hence they'd like to hedge their money in properties.
Sir, could you be a bit more precise and tell us exactly where the opportunities are in the real estate industry in the Philippines? Is it in the residential side, is it business or leisure?
In all three sectors, there are very strong indications of growth, continued growth. In the residential market, the supply-demand gap is such that there will be continued demand for housing. On the office market, the Philippines is next actually to Singapore and Mumbai in terms of office rental growth. Continued increases in office rental will be experienced, and one of the brightest spots in the Philippine property market is any property or any project that will be focused on tourism will actually give developers a heads up, because right now we only have 3 million arrivals in the Philippines, and by 2010, because of the new infrastructure being constructed in the Philippines, we expect more airports to be constructed and more infrastructure and roads, and the Philippine Tourism Department has projected about 5 million arrivals in 2010.
Oh, okay, looking up. Joey, gotta go. Great to talk to you, sir. Thank you for the time. Jose Antonio there, Chairman and CEO at Century Properties, live from our studios in Hong Kong, and just a couple of feet away there as well. Our guest host for the last hour and a half, Gerard Lyons, Chief Economist and Group Head of Global Research at Standard Chartered Bank. Thank you to the both of you.
We are all aware of the current volatility in the global financial markets and real estate markets. And while the Philippines has not been immune from these headwinds, the picture in the Philippines is very different from the Western counterparts. This chart is a comparison of 4 equity indices, starting with the Dow Jones Industrial of the United States, the London FTSE in the UK, the DIFM in the United Arab Emirates, and the Philippine Stock Exchange. While all markets have experienced significant losses, the performance of the Philippine stock market has been better relative to these major markets. More specifically, talking about real estate prices, the US, UK, and the Middle East have experienced declines anywhere from 5 to 30%. Talking specifically about Century products, on the left are a list of our ongoing projects, the percentage increase in capital appreciation since time of launch, and the percentage sold, or the sales velocity. South of market has experienced a 36% gain and is 100% sold out. Soho Central has increased 24% and is 98% sold. Grand Soho Makati has gone up 19% and is 98% sold out. Canyon Ranch, our horizontal community development, has increased 20% and is currently 96% sold. Gramercy Residences, the first luxury towers in Century City, has increased 26% since launch date, and updated is around 93% sold. Knightsbridge Residences, our second luxury tower in Century City, was only recently launched in May of 2008. Since then, has already increased by 35%, and updated figures show 65% sales velocity. On average, Century's real estate portfolio has increased 27% and is very healthy in terms of sales, with close to 90% sales velocity. What I'd like to point out here is that these are two columns that cannot really coexist without the other. Any developer can increase prices, but if the projects doesn't sell, that doesn't mean anything. But what Century projects show is that not only have prices increased, all of the projects have been well received by the buying public. This chart compares 3 major markets, the US, Singapore, and the Philippines, in terms of demand drivers and the modes of purchase. For the United States and Singapore, most of the buyers purchase their homes through debt or by getting mortgages. In Singapore, more specifically, a lot of the buyers purchase to flip the property, i.e. very speculative investment. This also happens in other markets such as Dubai and other Middle Eastern countries. Contrast this to the Philippines, 80% of buyers actually purchase via equity through installment purchases through the life of the construction. Also, people buy pre-need or actual need. Pre-need because people intend to retire in the Philippines, and actual need for a roof over the heads of their families. What this chart shows is that during a down cycle, the Philippines will be less susceptible to market corrections and hence a stronger market. We all read the same newspapers, we all watch the same shows, and day after day we're all inundated with bad news about the financial markets in the US and in Europe. And what I'd like to show with you and share with you are a few key facts. The US and the UK have both experienced massive losses in the realm of $500 billion for each market. Compare this to the Philippines has only announced $400 million in losses, and this was primarily because of exposure to Lehman Brothers of a particular bank. Relative to the US and the UK markets, this loss is very, very small, as it represents only around 1% of the losses in the US and the UK. More importantly, in the Philippines, there have been no announced major bankruptcies or restructurings in the Philippine businesses. Also, there have been no major announcements on foreclosures and retrenchments. And the reason behind this is because the Philippines specifically has undergone a huge process of deleveraging, which began since 1997 during the Asian financial crisis. In 1997, the Philippine peso devalued by 100%. Overnight, from a rate of 27 to $1, it spiked to 55 pesos to $1. And back then, a lot of the banks had a lot of exposure to real estate property companies who were land banking. Because of this, the banks took a very prudent approach and started very conservative lending. Also, developers and other companies started pairing off their debts and started really creating healthier balance sheets. Because of this, it has been a period of 11 years of catharsis in the system, both the financial system, the banking system, and the health of actual companies has already started to change. And so, the losses that you see now happening in the US and the UK are not experienced in the Philippine setting. This slide talks about how leverage is not used both by developers and as buyers as a major driver of the business. From a developer's point of view, the concept of subprime does not exist. In the US, buyers can actually get debt with 0% down payment. In some instances, buyers are actually paid money to take a loan. And this is a situation called negative equity, where buyers are actually paid to get new loans. In more instances, actually, people buy more than just one unit, but they actually buy 2, 3, or maybe even 5 units, which really shows a very speculative market. In the Philippines, no buyer can get financing unless they put a minimum down payment of at least 20%. Currently, banks are actually more stringent, and this figure has increased to the 30 to 40% range. Also, Philippine real estate companies have very low gearing. The public companies, and this is all public information, have only up to 40% debt on their books. From a buyer's point of view, as mentioned earlier, 80% of our buyers buy through equity payments, installment or hulugan. This tracks two things. This shows the growth in remittances as represented by the green bars from year 2000 till today. In year 2000, OFW remittances and repatriated back to the Philippines was $6 billion. Fast forward to 2008, this figure is now a whopping $16 billion, or an increase of 270%. The line shows the increasing trend in labor deployment outward. In year 2000, the figure was 600,000 per year. Now in 2008, that figure is 1.3 million OFWs leaving the countries every year. So we always ask ourselves, is this trend going to reverse? And the simple answer is no, primarily because opportunities still exist and are very bountiful in many countries. While one market may suffer in the short term, Filipinos are very opportunistic and will move where the opportunities are. Recent studies have shown that 30% of the remittances actually go into real estate-related expenditures and investment. Taking the 2008 figure of $16 billion, This translates to 240 billion pesos or $4.8 billion to be spent on real estate related expenses, be they upgrades, improvements, furnitures and fixtures, and also real estate investments and purchases. One thing that is downplayed is actually the gray market for OFW remittances, which in essence could even double these figures. This chart shows the year-on-year changes, both in terms of the number of people, the number of OFWs deployed outward, and also the increases in the actual remittances in terms of on annual remittances. In the year 2000, there were 9 million people living abroad. Now today, this figure is 10 million strong. These 10 million OFWs now represent the growing middle class of the Philippines. And this is a robust 10% growth. In terms of number of deployment, which is very important, this is the rate of increase in terms of the number of people leaving for other countries. The total number only grew by 10%, but the rate of growth actually grew by 33%. In terms of dollar figures, there was a 10% increase in terms of remittances annualized for 2008. Very important, there is a diversification happening, not just in terms of the geographical destinations, but also the type of jobs that people are getting. In terms of geography, all of the early parts of the expatriation began in the US. Now this strong trend has actually spread globally in the UAE. These are Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and the other Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. In Asia, this is very prominent in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan, and also happening in Australia and in New Zealand. Aside from the geographical diversification, Filipinos now are actually going up the value chain. They are getting higher paying jobs and are performing higher quality jobs. Because of this, two main factors, remittances and investments for the purchase of Philippine property will continue to flow to the Philippines. Just recently, President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo signed an executive order in middle of November of last year, which grants special visa for employment generation to non-immigrants. Essentially, they can get an indefinite visa through an investment, a minimum capital investment, and an employment of a minimum of 10 Filipinos. What this does essentially, it opens up the real estate market to a much broader base. The interview with our chairman talked about many things, but more particularly, it talked about the demand and supply equilibrium and how supply has to play major catch-up to the demand. From a demand point of view, the country needs about 3.8 million houses until 2010. 70% of this, or 2.6 million homes, will come from new households, with the balance are actually accumulated backlogs, unfulfilled demand. From a supply point of view, consolidating all of the developers, both private and public, all of these developers combined will deliver 30,000 units in the central business districts of Makati and Fort Bonifacio. While this number only represents the central business districts, and while the demand factors represents demand for on a national basis, this goes to show you how the demand dwarfs the supply scenario. Because of this, the backlog for residential property remains to be high. And many people ask us, why isn't real estate prices going down in the Philippines when the same is not true in the US and in Europe? And the reason is because demand and supply. There is an inequilibrium, and the demand is much more than the supply scenario. Because of this real demand, property prices have not gone down in the Philippines. Talking more specifically about our company, we have a very focused and prudent approach in terms of managing and developing our projects. Many people may fault us in a boom scenario, and people ask us, why don't you open more projects? And the reason for this is that we only want to bite what we can chew. We do not launch a new project unless we know that other projects are significantly sold out. This has paid dividends in today's markets such as today. Taking an example in Century City, we did not launch Knightsbridge Residences until Gramercy was 70% sold. Through the healthy sales of Gramercy, we can ensure that the project will be completed on time. Also, because we are a private company, unlike public companies that are actually need to show year-on-year growth by launching new projects, Century only has to answer primarily to one stakeholder, and those are our buyers. The interview was also talking about inflation, and we know that the headlines can change very, very quickly, and it's very dynamic and fluid. At the time of the interview, there was an inflationary, if not hyperinflationary environment where the prices of basic commodities were increasing. Today, actually, this market we're actually more in terms of a deflationary environment. Because of this, the developer has cost savings in terms of construction materials. In the case of Century, these savings are actually passed on to our buyers in form of discounts and incentives upon purchase. This chart compares two asset classes, primarily financial assets such as stocks and bonds, and real estate assets such as homes and condominiums. People buy stocks and bonds for a purely financial reason. These are pro forma returns. Pro forma returns can be positive, but many times returns can be negative. From a point of view of real estate assets, not only does it have this financial utility given to a buyer, there are added utility benefits in terms of usage, meaning people can actually use the homes and the condos. And also, purchasing condos and homes provides a link or an umbilical cord to the country. Many Filipinos who leave the Philippines actually yearn and ache to go back home. And many times when they come back to visit the Philippines, they don't want to be a stranger in their own countries. And so what we'd like to stress here is that unlike stocks and bonds that only provide a financial return, sometimes even negative, purchasing real estate properties in the Philippines provides financial utility value, usage utility value, and also a link to their mother country. Again, pardon for the small font, but we'd like to show you and compare asset prices both for Philippine condos and UK condos in two time periods. The first column shows beginning of last year, January 1, 2008, and the second column shows November 1, 2008. Taking an average price Philippine condo of 4 million pesos, the exchange rate of pound to peso was 81 to 1 at the beginning of the year. This translates to an average Philippine condo price of 49,000 pounds. In November, the pound actually depreciated by 9%. So from 81 to 1, it is now 70 for 1, or a reduction in the purchasing power. This translates to an increasing average Philippine condo price of 54,000 pounds. However, we cannot take that in isolation. We need to compare that to the performance of real estate in your local market. Taking UK real estate prices in the beginning of the year, these were 180,000 pounds. Fast forward to November of 2008, there has been a significant depreciation in UK property, and I've heard recently that it's up to 30%. Taking a very conservative figure of 12%, property prices have devalued from 180,000 pounds to 158,000 pounds. And what all of these numbers tell us is that while the British pound has depreciated in recent months, price of Philippine property is on average 70% cheaper than UK property. Very important point. Because of our flexible payment and affordable terms, UK-based Filipinos can still very much afford to buy Philippine property. And people might ask, now I'm getting less for my money. Is there still value in Philippine real estate? And the answer is a resounding yes. Furthermore, the decrease in purchasing power of pound-based earners is also compensated by the capital appreciation experienced historically by our projects. At this point, I'd like to give you a construction update of our projects. This is south of Market, our twin tower development in Fort Bonifacio Global City. Soma is the first fully fitted, fully furnished project that we delivered to the market. We turned over the project in second quarter of 2008. These are 40-story towers with 800 units. These are actually actual pictures that we took before we left for London. This is a picture of our receptionist manning the lobby. This is a photo of one of our amenities, our Soma THX theater room. And these are a picture of our buyers moving in, enjoying their fully fitted, fully furnished unit. Moving on, this is Soho Central, our development in Ortigas, Greenfield development. Soho Central is the first transportation-oriented development in the country, directly linked to the MRT station, providing people great access to public transport. Soho Central is also close to 100% sold out. Soho Central is expected to be turned over second quarter of this year. This picture shows that the elevator lifts are currently being installed. This is a picture of a furnished unit. Shifting gears, this is now our GSM development or Grand Soho Makati development in Makati. This is located in Buendia Avenue, just a stone's throw away from Pacific Star, which is our headquarters. GSM is sold out. It's 40-story tall with 400 units. This is a picture of workers hard at work doing electrical works. And these are a sample picture of views that can be enjoyed from the top floor of the building. It actually shows a view of Makati, Rockwell, and Century City site. This is Canyon Ranch, our flagship horizontal community development located in Carmona, Cavite. Canyon Ranch is an 800-home development. It is currently 95% sold. We have completed 200 homes and are currently constructing another 500. By late next year, we would have fully completed all of the homes and all of the amenities. Currently, Century Properties Management is already on board as the village property manager. There's a picture of phase 1 from a scene from phase 2. As you can see, homes at different stages of construction. And these are homes leading up to the Village Commercial Center, which will house 30 retail establishments for the community and the general vicinity. This is Gramercy Residences. We held our first pouring of concrete at the end of October of last year. To give you an idea of the magnitude and scale of the site, the next picture shows how big the property actually is. We actually had to dig 100 feet, or an equivalent of 10 floors, that will house the future basements of the property. Today, excavation works is 100% complete, and we are in a full swing for the foundation works, which is expected to be completed in April of this year. Currently, there are around 350 workers on site, and at the peak of construction, we will be employing 2,000 strong. This is another picture of people installing the rebars and the steel at the foundation level. Many people have approached me earlier and asked about our New York development. This is actually an actual photo of the building. This is not photoshopped in any way, shape, or form. Centurion is our marquee development in New York, in Manhattan, and is actually located on 55th Street off 5th Avenue, which is the main retail thoroughfare in Manhattan. This project is our landmark project designed by Starchitect IMP, who is the same architect behind masterpieces such as the Grand Louvre in Paris, the Bank of China building in Hong Kong, and the Four Seasons Hotel in New York. We are developing 1 to 4 bedrooms ranging in price from $2 million to $10 million. The project will be turned over in April of this year. This is a picture of our lobby being finished. These are just the machine back rooms of the building. In summary, Soma was completed 9 months ahead of schedule. Soho Central Tower 1 was completed 6 months ahead of schedule. Tower 2 will be completed 18 months ahead of schedule. Grand Soho Makati will be completed 6 months ahead of schedule. Canyon Ranch, Gramercy, Knightsbridge, and Centurion are all on track. At this point, I'd like to share with you some of our buyer-friendly payment terms and policies. These numbers try to compare our in-house payment terms, which are interest-free, and if one were to get bank financing, either a 5 or a 10-year loan. Taking the Knightsbridge residences, for example, the average price of a condominium is 4 million pesos. One of our standard payment terms is 75% over 5 years, which is the life of the construction, and 25% turnover. This translates to a monthly amortization of around 50,000 pesos. If one were to get a 5-year loan on that same property, paying a 20% equity down payment, their monthly amortization would translate to 68,000 pesos, which is still much higher than the amortization that one were to pay if they were to choose our Stanhouse in-house interest-free payment terms. Comparing this to a 10-year loan, the monthly amortization will be slightly lower at 44,000. However, what isn't captured here is the interest that the buyer has to pay when one takes out a 10-year loan. Adding all the interest, this totals 2 million pesos, or a whopping 50% of the total contract price. So putting this in relative terms, if one were to get a 10-year loan, 3 years payments of those 10 years will actually just go to interest. It will not go to principal reduction. It will not go to the developer. So what we are saying here is that Century's in-house payment terms are highly competitive, if not outright better than bank financing. Also, our in-house monthly amortizations are on par, if not cheaper and more affordable than if one were to take bank financing. Talking a little bit about our policies and procedures, our main policy is accepting post-dated checks from client. However, in the cases wherein we don't accept those foreign-denominated checks, we will accept remittances. And it is in this same vein that we've actually created tie-ups with major Philippine banks. In the UK, we have tie-ups with PNB, BPI, and Banco de Oro. This slide shows the branches of these banks in your local market. PNB has branches in Queen Victoria Street and also in Notting Hill. And BPI has branches in Earl's Court, which is one of the main centers for Philippine activity. The column here shows the typical fees that one would have to pay for monthly remittances. We'd also like to stress that we understand your situation. Every buyer is in a different situation. Some people have the cash to pay for the purchase outright, and some people may not have that cash. Because of this, Century is willing and is able to tailor fit our payment terms to your own personal cash flows. Also, we have created a very powerful online portal called Century Online, which tracks real-time inventory and actually calculates payments automatically depending on your own selection. We'd like to reiterate that we accept checks in foreign currency. We actually accept checks that are pound sterling denominated. Also, we have a strong local presence of our agents and buyers, as represented by the presence of our agents here today. In London, we actually have 2 offices that can serve as service centers for all of your inquiries. It's very important not to confuse the buyers. If you have a longer session with them, then you can show them more than one video. But if you only have a short session with them, show one project, be it Gramercy, Knightsbridge, or Canyon Ranch, or as the case may be. So you have to read your market, because at the end of the day, they'll like what you present and mahihirapan sila mag-decide. So it's very important that you actually try to close the night of the event. So present only one project, and if asked, then present it on the site. So what we typically have is we have a setup like this. Technology is very important. You need to have a projector, you need to have a slide, you need to have several laptops and a very good speaker system with a wireless mic. Okay? You need to have the podium for the speakers. When you yourself speak, you need to have your own notes. So you need to have a podium. Also, because people arrive at different times, it would be ideal if you actually have a separate closing area that is quiet. So if you have ideally a separate room with Wi-Fi, internet, and also several laptops with a printer because you want to print the payment terms and close on the spot. Also, you want to have a printer with a scanner so you can actually scan checks if they have it. So be equipped to close right there and then. You will be surprised at the interest that you will generate. And we had a closing rate of 30% when presenting. So or maybe even 50%. For every 10 people, mga 3 to 5 bought. So it was not unheard of. For one event, we closed 25 units. 10% after multiple times of purchase, we visit pa ng model unit. Dito hindi pa lang nakikita yung model unit because you have primed them in terms of answering their concerns. It's very important that we don't hide behind the headlines. We can't say that everything is rosy. Everything is not. Actually, in some cases, it's falling bad, fast. But what we'd like to stress here and belabor the point is that the real estate situation in the Philippines is totally different from the real estate situation where they live. They are consistently showing reduction in property values and foreclosures of friends and family. But in the Philippines, it's actually the contrary. The health of the market is very strong. Our sales velocity, taking our performance, we closed 95 units of Knightsbridge in January.
Manila, I'll be coming back to Manila.
In closing, I'd like to share with you some testimonials and some emails that I have received via email from some of our buyers. This one was sent to us in October, and I quote, "My investments here in the US was just hit bad by the stock market. The Grand Soho Makati and Gramercy units that I bought are the only ones that are doing good. And I would like to thank Century for that. Your help is greatly appreciated." Here's another one also sent to me by a lady in July. "I am glad that I have begun placing my money in Philippine real estate versus real estate elsewhere. Not only am I assured that it's a hard asset as opposed to stocks and bonds, but I can actually use my investment when I return to the Philippines." In parting, I would like to give you some advice if you are interested in buying Philippine property. First, minimize leverage and don't use borrowed money if possible when buying real estate. Buy real estate in installment or hulugan. By buying pre-selling, it is like borrowing money without interest, as units are bought through a period of time or over the life of construction of a project. Also, place your savings in hard assets. Real estate has proven to keep their value over the long run and is ahead against inflation. Real estate does not evaporate, does not move. Unlike paper investments such as stocks, bonds, and derivatives, whose value can go to zero, as seen many times in the current financial situation today. Also, it's very important to follow the golden rule in real estate, which is location, location, location. Always buy in prime locations in the central business districts of Makati, Ortigas, Fort Bonifacio, and the growth areas in the south such as Calabar Zone. Also, choose a developer with a solid reputation and a track record. You are investing your hard-earned savings. It is very important for you to be backed up by a professional company with a positive delivery rate. Century Properties has a 100% batting average in delivering projects. And finally, we would like to thank you for continually remitting every month, year after year, to your family and friends back home. These remittances are a powerful driver and a growth engine for the Philippine economy. Because of this, it will continue to augment the Philippine economy and improve the real estate market for the Philippines.
Manila, Manila, my Century home in Manila. Century condos in Manila. Century for